On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we're talking about the 2024 Texas Longhorns recruiting class. Dylan, it's pretty much come to a close unless there's some minor adjustments that Sark would want to make in the spring season. Of course, some players are still left unsigned overall, but Dylan, if you're Sark and the Longhorns, you're pretty dang comfortable with how they closed this class out. Was there any major thoughts that you had just to open this?
The biggest thing is the transfer portal. I know we didn't get to touch on it recently, just with the signings that came out of it. Right now, they're sitting at three, but it was three very impactful ones, and I believe two out of three were at least on our wish list. Trey Moore might have been somebody you said along the lines, but he's a great edge rusher out of UTSA. Texas was able to get him. Andrew Makuba, Austin area legend for in high school, right? Coming back from Clemson, going to be adding to the secondary for Texas. And then, honestly, for me, Devon, I mean, it's between Makuba and Matthew Golden, but Matthew Golden was a huge get, I feel like, just with the speed he adds to special teams that you're losing with Worthy. And then just, again, another dynamic receiver. I don't think he's going to be the best receiver for Texas, but when it comes from just the value you get out of having a speedster wide receiver and
Yeah.
then having him at
He
special
might not
teams,
just
huge.
immediately play like Adonai Mitchell, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he does provide some talent.
Yes.
Anything else you're gonna say?
No, I mean those are the biggest things, and locking down. Obviously, I think Ryan Wingo was around the 2 to 3 week period. It was just huge gets when it comes to replacing the playmakers that Texas is losing.
Yeah, Dylan, there's plenty of flip talk surrounding Wingo, but I don't think any of that flip talk was coming from Wingo himself. I think that was all the Missouri faithful. And
Yeah.
like you're talking about transfer wise, just to start talking about some of that, all those guys were on the list that we had for our wish list. Trey Moore, like you said, the UTSA product, I think will be a great ad. Of course, he already has a ton of experience, Dylan, and he has a ton of sacks, but can it translate to the SEC? He showed that it could when UTSA moved up a step in their competition, so that's a good sighting to see. But there's still some.
That goes for everybody, though. I'm gonna be honest
Oh yeah,
on Texas, like how they're gonna transition from
well like
the Big
Golden
12 to the
too.
SEC. Because
Oh, and
yeah,
and the
exactly.
entire yes, entire roster as well, of course. But Dylan Makuba, yet again, Austin area. I mean, I'm excited about that. Of course, covering him in high school, Dylan and I did. Just hoping that Texas would get it in his recruitment, and Dylan, they didn't really get a solid footing in there when they needed to at the end. And Clemson,
That was Clemson at their peak, though, right? During that
Clemson
timeline
was,
where he transferred,
yeah, he
or not
was
transferred,
recruited
but
by Venables at Clemson
yeah.
before, of course. Well, I think it was a year or two before Venables took that Oklahoma job. And yeah, I mean, Dylan, I don't think last year was his greatest year in terms of just the production he's had during his times at Clemson, and not saying that he did bad last year, just in terms of overall single season. But we've seen some things out of Makuba at Clemson that are just special. He's got a lot of versatility in the secondary, which of course PK and Sark love. So that for me was really exciting. The transfers, Dylan, I don't think they're done either. I think we're talking about spring cleaning, if you will. I think there's going to be some spring additions. Are there going to be too many? I don't know, but I think Sark has done a good job of utilizing the portal as getting the best talent available versus Dylan just plugging holes, which
Yeah.
I wouldn't say was a major issue early on in his tenure as a head coach. He was adding players at positions of need, but it seems like the past year he's added players that contribute to the bottom line for the Longhorns, and it's paid off.
It's more, yeah, it's more intentional with just how he's going about it. He's like, all right, this is the guys we want. Let's back up the Brinks truck here and get this guy in our doors because he not
Yeah,
only fills what we need positionally, but he's a talented player that's going to add an incredible amount of depth, at least at the top level, when it comes to just starting positions.
exactly. Like adding, as I mentioned earlier, adding an Adonai Mitchell immediately comes in and is potential day one, day two NFL draft pick who contributes at the biggest moments. Like that is a addition that is going to change the shape of
And
your
that's
team.
what Yeah, and that's what Texas offers. Like even last year and now going into this year, or I guess 2024 next season, team like players are going to be able to come in and start just with the level of talent that Texas is losing on the defensive line, right? With Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat. So filling those positions out, the secondary, really anybody's position. I don't think anybody has a lockdown starting spot in the secondary at the moment. It's just Texas will get better experience wise in that position. But again, they're still gonna be looking for outside talent. So Makuba does fit that bill of exactly what Texas can provide is you can start instantly and you're going to be one of our best players back there already.
Yeah, in terms of secondary, shout out Malik Muhammad, Dylan. I think he's going to be,
Yes.
he's probably one of the few locks. There are definitely a couple of guys that have positioned themselves well, but as Dylan's saying, they're still going to have to compete in the spring to end up earning the job just because of this past year. But as we've been talking about, this is a young secondary, and they're heading in the right direction over the course of the year, which has been promising to see because, Dylan, we watched a little bit too much of the passing game earlier on in the year. But Makuba, definitely a good add there. And Golden, I know you were talking about him earlier, definitely adds something in the special teams game. And I'm interested to see him at wide receiver because he has been putting up numbers at Houston. And of course, Houston now is a Big 12 school, so they've been playing similar competition to Texas. Of course, the conference has expanded, so they don't always play the same opponents, but he has had a great season at Houston. And in Sark's system, if Sark gives him a chance, Dylan, that's what it comes down to. Golden, if he's committed, he's gonna be putting up numbers as well. But on the high school side of things, Dylan, Ryan Wingo, of course, locked down his recruitment and signed for Texas. They kept Colin Simmons, and you name it. The notable thing, of course, we did a video about it, is they added guys like Kobe Black and
Yep.
Xavier Filsamy. How do you think, high school wise, Dylan? How do you think they round out the class this season?
I think it was huge. I think leaning into again, I'm going to talk about the wide receivers. I just think it's such a valuable thing. Just with it's a flip, right? Like yours was playing around experienced receivers and he was growing. Now he's going to have to be the one kind of the adult in the room with this young receiving core spearheaded by Jonte Cook. And then you got Ryan Wingo who's going to be able to have a chance to play instantly. And then when you go down the line, I look at guys like Aaron Butler out of Calabasas, California. This is a speedster. You get him the ball, he's gonna be able to make things happen. And speed translates. It's gonna be his size and get taking those hits that he's gonna have to get comfortable with, or just comfortable in the uncomfortable with while he's in the Texas program, right, playing SEC competition. But he is somebody that can make an instant impact as well. So really looking at guys that are just instant impact players, and kind of like how you saw with Anthony Hill, I think Colin Simmons can come in, whether that's edge or outside linebacker, and make an impact at least in the beginning of the season. And then as they work him in, he becomes more of a full time starter and really makes his presence known.
I think a lot of Longhorns fans, Dylan, have gotten comfortable with having a recruiting class with the top quarterback, and
Mm,
just they have all the stars, you know, behind or along with that top quarterback. And this class is a little bit different, but I think as you were kind of alluding to, it's more of a complementary class where these are a lot of plug and play sort of guys. Adding a
yeah,
Wingo, adding, as you mentioned, that Butler edition from Calabasas, California, that is a very promising add as well. And going along with John Tay Cook, as you were also talking about earlier, these are guys that are going to be competing immediately. We were talking about the secondary, Phil Sami, Black coming in. And then Trey Owens, I know he was a little bit underrated at quarterback, Dylan, but that's a big addition as well. I know it's not too worth spending a ton of time over, but the fact that Trey Owens, a solid quarterback, 4 stars on 24/7 Sports out of the Houston area, with Malik Murphy leaving and going to Duke, that's an extra spot, Dylan, that Sarkisian and the Longhorns were needing to fill. And of course, I'm not going to be adding any sort of fuel to the fire in terms of that quarterback room, Dylan, and what might happen. But of course, speculation is always, oh, someone's going to leave at some point. Well, another
yeah.
guy that is a steady hand is not going to hurt anybody at the end of the day. Of course, though, I think that's national news bias. We're not giving you guys the
Sure.
arch transfer news. We're telling it to you straight. I think everyone's quite happy in Austin with how things are turning out right now. But Dylan, any overall thoughts on the shape of this class? How are you feeling?
I think you said it perfectly. I think when you look at it, complementary is exactly the word that I would use, just because it really does give you the guys in which they will get the work in with viewers, have their time to shine and make an impact the moment they come in, but also they're going to be used as a bridge with whether that's Arch Manning or timing it correctly, Trey Owens, who if Ewers leaves, after next season, Trey Owens is going to be a sophomore, and if Arch really is going to be transferring at that point because he wanted the starting job as a sophomore, then he's in a good spot. I don't think that's going to happen. Just to put that to bed, he would have already pretty much
Whoa,
transferred, right, Devin? So like everybody slow their horse. I don't want to go into
everyone.
that tangent, but like you're talking about, it
Yeah,
fills out those needs and then adds extra depth to certain positions. Like most specifically, we've talked about Brandon Baker on the outside at tackle. Christian Jones is going to be leaving. So he has an opportunity whether he could win in camp or at least wait one more year as a sophomore, come in and be a significant player standing at 6'5", 285, right? So those are other areas in which this draft as well as add positional depth to positions that are already pretty stacked going into the new year.
exactly. And when I say this is a complimentary class, of course, they're adding value, like we were talking about earlier in the transfer side of things. Like all these additions have to provide something for the team, and are going to end up. A lot of these guys are going to be pretty dang good. The third overall class in the 2024 recruiting cycle right now, Texas possesses. And Dylan, yet again, I'd spend another 30 minutes of you guys' time, so I don't think you guys want that. But there's a lot of guys in this class that are lower rated that are really piquing my attention. Just to name one as a little teaser trailer, Alex
Uh-oh.
January out of Duncanville, the 3-star defensive tackle. 24/7 Sports has him listed at 6'4", 325, but on the field, Dylan, this guy is just, he's not Tavondre Sweat, of course, but you just get kind of the similar vibe of just seeing a large human that is making plays sideline to sideline.
How how big were we in high school? Like I think I was like 5'11",
5'11", 140.
135. Yeah, like oh my, this is insane. If I saw this guy walking through the hallways, I'd have to run away scared.
Yeah, and Dylan, he has a good chase ability, yet again, sideline to sideline, so I hope your cross-country skills were put to the
Uh,
test there.
yes. Fight or flight? I choose flight.
Every time with some of these guys, every time. But all that to say, yet again, like Trey Owens, I think underrated find. A lot of underrated finds that this class and Sark, they just came together, and I think Longhorns fans should be happy about the end result. But yet again, the transfers will be making a name for themselves also sooner, much sooner rather than later. But Longhorns fans, which players are you excited about wearing the burnt orange? Let us know down below. Don't forget to check us out at hornsports.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, have a great rest of your day.